If you're just getting started with Google Ads, there are 3 questions that you're going to have to answer. The first one is, what is the right budget for you with Google Ads, and can you actually afford it? The second is, what's the right strategy for you based on your goals and your budget? And the third one is, how can you actually get your first campaign launched without exploding your budget in the process and just paying the dump tax? If you're new to the channel, I'm Silvio Perez. I'm the founder of AdConversion. We teach 9,000 plus B2B marketers how to master ads, and we manage over $3 million a month in ad spend for top B2B SaaS brands. If you're looking for a basic tutorial that is just going to walk you through the campaign manager and how to click certain buttons without thinking about it, then this isn't for you. But if you're looking for a real tutorial that's going to teach you how to think about your strategy and your implementation so you can actually become a real expert and make decisions based on first principles, then this is for you. I'm going to be explaining everything in this video like if you were one of my team members inside of our ad agency and just sharing what we have found work over millions of dollars in Google ad spend. Let's talk about what is the right budget for you, and are you actually fighting a winnable fight with Google Ads? A lot of times people feel optimistic about Google Ads and they're ready to just throw their budget, but they don't actually realize if they're fighting a winnable fight or not. I think ROI is something we all obsess about and is very important, but you should also be focusing on ROE, which is return on effort. And before embarking on this journey, you need to figure out if this is actually a journey that you can reach the destination. And like we say to our clients, is this a winnable fight? So throughout this whole video, I'm going to be using Sammy as my example. Sammy is our ad automation platform that optimizes performance across LinkedIn, Google, and Meta ads. It's a new SaaS we launched about 6 months ago. And I'm going to be using everything I talk about in this video with Sammy and seeing, can I actually do Google Ads on Sammy and what will that actually look like? So everything I do for Sammy, feel free to just replicate the same process for yourself, whether that's for a client or your own business. So the first thing we need to do is we have to do some preliminary keyword research and figure out how much is it going to actually cost us to buy traffic on Google? And does it make sense for us depending on our average revenue per user, our average deal size, and our existing conversion rates? So let me show you how you can create a worst, moderate, and best case scenario starting point. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using our Google Ads budget calculator tool that we built on AdConversion. I will go ahead and link this in the description, but if you want to find this, you can just go to our website and just go to the resources section and then click on Google Ads calculator and it'll bring you here. And using this tool, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out our worst, moderate, and best case scenario and the different impacts of our conversion rates. So let's just use Sammy as an example. Sammy is a product-led SaaS business. So we have a free trial motion. And then from there, you go and you become a paid user after experiencing the product. So for me, let's say I wanted to get 10 paid users a quarter. And right now, my conversion rate from free trial to paid user, let's pretend that's 3%. And my average revenue per sale is $119. So this is my starting point in terms of the business goal and my current conversion rates. Now what I need to do is I need to figure out what is my average cost per click. However, I've never ran any Google Ads for Sammy before, so I'm starting from zero. I have no data to go off of. If you've already ran Google Ads before and you've bought traffic for the keywords that you're interested in, then you have an advantage because you don't have to guess on this step. You can just go into your Google Ad account, figure out your average cost per click by looking inside your account, and then you can apply that here. So in my case with Sammy, what I have to do is I need to come here into Google Ads and I'm going to navigate to the planning section, keyword planner, and I'm going to use the Google Ads keyword planner tool as a starting point to figure out what is my average cost per click. A really cool way to do this is if you click discover new keywords, you can start with keywords. So if you already have keywords in mind that you want to bid on, you can start here, or you can start with the website. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab my domain here for Sammy, and I'm going to drop that into the keyword planner, and I'm going to use my entire site, and I'm going to click get results. And now what Google is doing is it's going to scan my website, and it's going to propose keywords for me based on the context of my website. So this is a cool way to get started. So for example, advertising automation platform. This is exactly what Sammy is. It's an ad automation platform for ads. Think Zapier, but for ads. So this is a really awesome keyword for us. And what I can do, and I highly recommend that you adjust your columns. If you don't see what I have, adjust your columns for the values that you see in this video. And the first thing I want to look at is the average monthly searches. Is there enough search volume to actually justify not the ROI, the ROE, the return on effort, to actually go out and build all these campaigns? So I can see here for the average monthly searches for advertising automation platform, it's about 10 and 100. Not a lot. In terms of recommendations, ideally we're working with 1 to 10,000. That's a much healthier volume to really drive a good amount of volume from Google Ads. However, if it's super valuable for your business and you want to show up for any one of those 100 people that are searching it, then it's worth doing. One other thing that I would mention is right now my default location is set to the United States. So it might be 10 to 100 just in the United States and then much more worldwide. So feel free to adjust your location settings depending on where you're advertising. So using the example advertising automation platform, what I'm going to do now that I understand the average monthly searches is I'm going to look here at the top of page bid high range. And this is basically Google's estimate of how much you need to spend on the high end in order to show up on the top 3 spots. I will tell you, in my experience running Google Ads for multiple years, this estimate has never been correct. And this estimate is always wrong. So as a general safety net, what I like to do is I like to just look at the high bid just to be safe. And then I'll take the high bid and I'll add about 20% on top of it, just as a margin of error. If I have no data to go off of, I've never ran these campaigns before and bid on these keywords before. If I had that data, of course, just go into your Google Ad account and pull your average. But I'm going to use this as a starting point. So looking at this, it's going to cost me $69 a click in order to buy traffic for this keyword. I can tell you right now, that's not happening. I already know this is not a winnable fight by just taking 5 minutes and doing this exercise I'm walking you through. And I can't tell you how many people spend months and years of stress and trial and wasted budget because they don't spend 5 minutes doing this exercise I'm walking you through right now. So you're welcome. I hope it saves you a lot of stress and money because it definitely, I wish somebody showed me this. So you can see here, $69 a click. For context, our average revenue per user is $119. Now, granted, that is on the front end. We have a stronger lifetime value, so we can offset the cost of this over the lifetime of the customer. But right now that we're starting as a new business, I'm not going to spend $69 a click profitably. It's just not going to happen. I don't have a strong enough conversion rate in terms of trial to paid user yet to offset that cost. So I already know there's no way that I'm going to make this happen. But just to show you and like illustrate this, I'm going to go ahead and grab this cost per click. And now I'm going to come back to the Google Ads calculator. And here under average cost per click, I'm going to drop in that CPC value. And now I'm going to scroll down here. And for worst, moderate, and best case, this is where I can adjust my form conversion rates. So your form conversion rate, this is your landing page conversion rate. So in the case of Sammy, someone first must sign up for a free trial. And then once they sign up for a free trial, they then have to become a paid user. So I'm basically saying of the people who sign up for a free trial, about 3% of them actually convert to a paid user. If you're sales led, for you, instead of it being your paid conversion rate, it would be your sales conversion rate, right? So for context, maybe that's 30%. You would adjust that win rate. And here, this is my landing page conversion rate. So worst case, if I had a 5% landing page conversion rate, meaning of all the people who are hitting my trial page, 5% of them convert, this would be the daily budget and the monthly budget that I need in order to get 10 paid users at this conversion rate and a 3% win rate. $154,000 a month. That is just not happening, right? And this is assuming a 5% trial conversion rate, right? And this is where you can modify these values to really see what is it going to take. So for example, if you're like most B2B businesses, you don't have 5%, you have 1%, which is terrible, by the way. And you should definitely get to work on improving that. But imagine, like if I have 1%, it goes from a monthly budget of 154 to 770,000. If I bump that up to 5%, now we're at 154. I bump this up to 10%, now we're at 77. I bump this up to 20%, now we're at 38K a month. This should really highlight to you how important your conversion rates are for your Google Ads success and really all of your ad success. But I find this tool to be really helpful to just frame expectations with new clients of here is what a winnable fight will entail. So just coming back to an example, let's pretend I have 3%, I've got 10%, and then on the best case, I've got 20% for my conversion rates. You're going to see here for an average cost per click of $69, I would need a monthly budget of $256,000, $77,000, and $38,000. And at my current average revenue per sale, like the ROAS just isn't there to really make it worthwhile. So I know it's not happening, right? I can already save myself a lot of stress and headaches by just doing this process. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically figure out, is there an actual opportunity, right? Okay, obviously I can make it happen with this type of campaign, with this type of keyword, but are there other ones? So what I would do is I would look through the list and I would see, is there anything else that is relevant enough that I would want to see if it can make sense? So for example, like let's look at this one. Automation ads, or maybe actually let's do something a bit more specific. So there's a keyword that comes to my mind right now, and it is LinkedIn ads automation. So I'm going to search that up and let's see. Okay, there's no volume. So I'm not getting a lot of confidence that Google Ads is going to be a good channel for us for Sammy. And one thing I will mention in my experience with Google Ads is you want to reach the Google Ads sweet spot. So that basically means, number one, you're operating an existing category. So in our case, we're operating in the world of ad automation. Ad automation is not an existing category. I mean, it is an existing category, but it's not something that's popular yet in the sense of mainstream and it's what everyone's doing. A good example of this is if you were bidding on the keyword, like LLM or AI or something around basically what ChatGPT made popular, right? ChatGPT made LLMs popular. If you were bidding on the keyword LLM before ChatGPT, you wouldn't get enough volume, right? But now in a pre or a post ChatGPT world, there's a lot of volume for those types of keywords. So if you're not operating in an existing category that's more mainstream, search generally as a channel is not going to be as strong for you. The same is true of like the more niche you're focused, the more enterprise or upmarket you go, the more painful search will be in terms of trying to make a strong enough return on your effort outside of just return on investment. Doesn't mean there's not opportunity to be had, just means that you're going to have to be a bit more creative, which I'll talk about more in this video around when we get into the strategy portion of this. So go ahead and look up your keywords and start to put together a list of dream keywords for you that you think makes sense based on your website, based on what you're going after, and start to compile that list together so that you can actually follow along and move on to the next step. Okay, now that you understand the right budget for you and if you're fighting a winnable fight with Google Ads, let's talk about what is the right strategy for you based on your goals and your budget. In my experience running Google Ad campaigns, there are specific keyword strategies and campaigns that we go back to again and again for our clients, and I'm going to walk you through those campaigns right here. The first one is non-brand. So non-brand is the bread and butter for paid search. We're talking about Google Ads in this video, but everything I'm talking about also applies to Bing Ads. So if you're interested in that, that's also an opportunity. And this is really bidding on generic high intent solution related keywords, or as other people like to call them, your money keywords. So in my case with Sammy, a money keyword for us is somebody searching LinkedIn ads automation or ad automation platform. But as you can see, and the research we did, it's going to cost me $69 a click and the volume is low on the front end. I'm better off using that budget on paid social where I can get in front of people much earlier so that I can educate them, make them aware of the power of automation, build interest, right? And then drive them into my product. So non-brand for you, that might be something like if you're a SaaS business, it'll be like your keyword plus platform or solution or tools. So for example, CRM platform, CRM solution, CRM tools are all examples of non-brand keywords. The next one is competitive. So competitive keywords are where you're bidding on your competitors and you're basically just bidding on their brand name and you're trying to show up and tap into their existing awareness and steal customers from them transparently. And this could be a really great play for you if you're going up against known competitors in the space, or even more importantly, these competitors are attracting the kind of customers that you want. So for example, with me and Sammy, we know that non-brand keywords isn't very hot for me, right? Like the opportunity isn't there. The cost is way too high. The volume is way too low. And just for where I am right now in terms of the business, I can't make that work. However, maybe Sammy has certain competitors where I can bid on those competitors' names, and that could be a much better play for me. Maybe there's more volume, there's a better cost per click, especially if these competitors are known, but they're not that known in terms of like competitors bidding on them, right? They're not that expensive. There could be an opportunity there, and I could focus my efforts in that case. If you're watching this and you're going after enterprise deals or very niche types of clients, non-brand might not work as well for you, but competitive could work better, because if somebody is searching for your competitor's name, it speaks to the person behind the search in much more detail, right? Where if you're searching for that competitor, it probably already assumes that you've been educated on the problems that they solve. You're a specific kind of person, right? Because not just anybody is going to search for your competitor. And what this looks like in terms of keywords, it could be competitor name alternatives, cancel competitor name versus your name, right? So for example, Salesforce alternatives, cancel Salesforce subscription, Salesforce versus HubSpot, right? These are all examples in a SaaS context of what competitive would look like. The third type of campaign you could run is a brand campaign. So this is essentially where you're bidding on your own brand name to protect yourself against competitors bidding on yours. This is the exact opposite of competitive campaigns. Competitive campaign is the representation of offense. Brand campaign is a representation of defense. So this is where you're literally bidding on your own name. So your name reviews, your name versus competitor name, these types of keywords, so that if your competitors are trying to run that play against you, you can try to protect against that. One thing I'll mention about brand is you don't want to put the majority of your budget on this play. Again, this is defense. We really want to spend the majority of our budget going after new customers. And it's a really easy trap that we find, especially with larger accounts, is they spend way too much money on branded search, especially because they see so much direct attribution from branded search campaigns. The cost per trial is lower, or the cost per demo is lower compared to non-brand campaigns. But I would argue that they're not the same value for your business. I will say, though, there are exceptions. There's one brand in specific where we had a client that was spending like 40% of their search budget on brand, and we ran an incrementality test to basically prove or disprove if they were getting new users from branded search. And in their case, they were. So there are exceptions to this rule, but generally speaking, you don't want to spend the majority of your budget on brand. You want to focus on non-brand and some of the other themes that we're going to talk about. The fourth strategy you can leverage is RLSA, or remarketing list for search ads. This is essentially where you're bidding on keywords that only appear if somebody has already been to your website beforehand. And this is essentially search remarketing. So now you're taking those same non-brand keywords. So in my case with Sammy, I'm taking that advertising automation platform keyword that cost me $69 a click. And now what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, Google, I will bid on this super expensive keyword, but only if the person has already been to my website in the last 90 days. So now I'm willing to pay that premium cost per click, not just for anybody, but for a specific type of person that has already engaged with me in the past. This is a really great strategy when you have enough search volume. If you're like me in the Sammy example and you're a new startup and you don't have a lot of volume right now, you're still building your brand awareness, this probably won't work very well for you because you just don't have the audience size in order to make this work. And remember, you have two things going against you. You have the audience size in this case, and then you also have the search volume for the keyword. So I still only have 1 to 100 people searching that keyword I showed you a month. Plus, I only have the size of my audience. So you have two things going against you. So if you are going to do RLSA, it makes sense to use RLSA much more loosely. So meaning go after more competitive, or I should say more competitive, higher volume keywords. So this is where I might even get a little bit more content related or less intent oriented. So for example, I would only be willing to bid on advertising automation platform because it's super high intent. And if somebody searches it, they're a perfect person. But in an LSA example, maybe I would just bid on the keyword ad automation, which is much broader and can mean many more things. But if somebody has been to my website and they're searching anything around the category of ad automation, I want to make sure I show up. So again, this is where you can start to think. And that's why I'm really hoping to push in this video that you guys can take away from this, because I've seen the videos out there on YouTube and like, not to throw shade, but nobody's teaching us how to think. And when I started learning how to run Google Ads with my own money in college as a broke college student trying to get leads for my DJ business, I remember watching videos and being like, okay, just doing things and not really understanding why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. So this is another strategy you could potentially deploy. And again, depending on your trade-offs, your circumstances, you can decide if this makes sense for you. The fifth strategy is dynamic search ads. This is essentially where you let Google automatically create ads and bid on keywords based on the context of your website. I personally would not recommend this strategy if you're just getting started. This is definitely a more advanced strategy. And we usually use dynamic search ads to just find new opportunities in terms of keywords and search terms that we haven't considered. So if you don't have non-brand already in place, competitive already in place, I wouldn't touch DSA yet, but it is worth showing, especially if you're a more advanced advertiser and you want to just take your content to the next level and try to see if there's more opportunities that you haven't taken advantage of yet. The sixth type of strategy you could run for Google Ads is industry campaigns. So industry campaigns are where you're bidding on high intent industry related keywords. This is typically far less volume and it's extremely high quality. So for example, it's usually like keyword plus platform for industry is like one example of a query string. So for instance, with Sammy, it might be ad automation for e-commerce or ad automation for SaaS. That's an example of an industry keyword where I'm basically taking the industry word and I'm appending it to my non-brand keyword. So for you, you might, for example, with CRM, maybe it's CRM platform for small business or CRM platform for enterprise. Those are different examples of industry related keywords. So you can also bid on this. Again, the volume is not going to be as high, but it could be great brand awareness for you. And if somebody does search that thing, you do want to make sure you show up. And I will say one thing, if you're doing keyword research and the keywords that you're searching for don't have enough search volume or even have estimates in the Google Ads Keyword Planner, and you're like, Sylvia, what do I do? That doesn't say anything. Just launch the campaign. Once you launch the campaign, look at your keywords and Google will flag what the top of page bid needs to be in order to show up. So if you don't have any data and there are no estimates, just launch, get a click or two, and then go from there. The seventh strategy that you can leverage for Google Ads are content campaigns. So this is where you're bidding on relevant educational related keywords in order to reach quality prospects earlier on. So think more informational queries. So for example, how to do keyword or when should you invest in keywords? So for example, how to do ad automation or when should you invest in ad automation in a SAMmy context. I actually want to show you guys something here really quickly because just to really prove the power of this play. If you're in a world like I am with SAMmy where non-brand is just too expensive, I don't have the budget, let me show you an alternative. So maybe I would run a content campaign. So if I just search ad automation, let's see what that looks like. So ad automation has between 100 and 1,000, $36 top of page bid, still a bit too expensive for me. So let's try to get a little bit more niche, right? So you can, if you make the keyword more long tail, it will usually drop the price because there's less competitors bidding on that long tail variation. So in this case, I've got LinkedIn ad automation, which is extremely on point for me, but there's no estimates. So in this case, what I would do is I would just launch the campaign, get a few clicks, and then now have a baseline to reference and kind of use that for my forecasting moving forward. Or maybe let's do something more informational. So a good way to think about figuring out the keywords here too is if my exact keyword doesn't have opportunity, can you go to the next existing category or the next existing frame of awareness? And I'm going to make this make sense in a second, that you can tap into that your person would be looking at. So think of it as like adjacent buckets of understanding or topics that you can tap into, that if they search that, it's still relevant to what you offer and maybe you can get a discount. So this is all, again, part of the strategy piece. So for example, there's not a lot of people searching ad automation right now from what I can see in my estimates, but a feature that has been around for a long time that speaks to ad automation that people might be searching is automated rules. So if I search automated rules, let's see what's going on there. Okay, look at this. Automated rules, still about 100. Now the volume picked up. Instead of being 0 to 100, now we've got 100 to 1,000 average monthly searches. Okay, return on effort is looking much better here. And then not only that, we've got $21 a click compared to that $69 a click. And imagine Google Ads automated rules or LinkedIn Ads automated rules, Meta automated rules, Facebook automated rules. This automated rules campaign could be an alternate for me, right? So for example, maybe I would run a content campaign on automated rules and I could pay a $21 cost per click here instead of a $50 cost per click. And for the content campaign as well, as remember, you're trying to show up in front of people who are not solution ready, right? They're not ready to buy something, but they are trying to learn. So what I could do in this case with automated rules is I could create like a master article, right? Think of it as like a really great blog post on automated rules. And because Sammy happens to do automated rules, but just way better, I can plug Sammy into the article. So I will educate people on automated rules, but then I'll redirect them to the thing that I want, which is, hey, you should probably try Sammy if you want ad automation. So then this goes back to strategy. And I hope the light bulbs are firing in your guys' minds so you can start to think about this stuff as a strategist, right? And not just be like a cog in a machine just doing what everyone says blindly. Okay, a few closing points. If you are just starting off, my general recommendation is start off with non-brand. And if you're very niche, then focus on competitive or potentially even industry campaigns to get your first wins. And then you can start to scale your account from there with more types of keyword strategies and different themes to go after. Just wanted to take a quick second and say, if you're loving this video, then you're going to absolutely love our free courses here at AdConversion.com. We've got free courses on Google Ads. So if you want to go deeper on Google Ads, I actually created 3 courses on Google Ads, 101, 102, and 103. 101 is perfect for beginners that need to launch their first campaign step by step. 102 goes into how to actually optimize your ads. So now that you're driving all this great traffic from Google Ads, how do you convert those clicks into profit? And then finally, 103, I go much more into the advanced things around scaling and how to think about scaling. So if you're serious because you clicked on this video because you want to become a Google Ads expert, these resources are available for you and they're free. Our whole thing is about trying to make ad conversion the go-to place in the world to master B2B ads. Because when I was learning how to run ads, that just didn't exist. And I wanted to solve that problem. So if you don't believe us, I get it. Check out our wall of love. You can see all of the reviews from past students. People have landed jobs. They started ad agencies. It's been really incredible to hear the impact. So anyways, if you're loving this content, you'll love our courses. Go check it out at AdConversion.com. We've covered a lot in this video. We're almost there. Let's go ahead and close out on talking about how you can actually get your first campaigns launched without exploding your budget in the process. I'm going to walk you through the campaign builder now that you have all of this context going into it. And I just want to walk you through some of the traps to avoid that people often fall into when they're new to Google Ads that just unfortunately cost them budget. And we call it the dumb tax. Like you just choose the wrong settings because you didn't know any better. And now Google, kind of takes your budget. So I want to walk you through what not to do when setting up your campaigns. And what I've done is I've actually created a draft campaign here. I scoped it out at least using this paid search planning template. We give it away in our Google Ads course for free. So go check it out. And basically what I've done is I've scoped out a non-brand campaign. So this is my non-brand campaign using this naming convention. I've got it all mapped out here. And essentially what I'm going to be doing in this campaign is I'm going to be going after those automated rules. I think this could be a good, valuable test for us to see how it goes. So essentially what I've got is I have 4 ad groups in this campaign. One is a general one, LinkedIn, Google, Meta. And then what we're doing is we're going after automated rules. So we're going to do, in the general one, just automated rules. In the LinkedIn one, LinkedIn ads automated rules, Google ads automated rules. And then for Meta, Facebook ads automated rules. I could have multiple keywords per ad group. That's totally fine. Definitely not going to go too into the nuances of like how many keywords you should have. Generally speaking, it just comes down to your quality score, which you won't know until post-launch. So just start with what makes sense and group your keywords in your different ad groups based on relevance. And I'm going to be using an exact match type for all of these keywords. So exact match is the most specific. It just basically tells Google, I only want you to show up for search terms that are closely related to the meaning of these keywords. And Google is getting more and more semantic, meaning the future of Google Ads, or I should say the present of Google Ads, is it's less about getting all of the keyword variations possible and adding into your campaign, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on that opportunity. So for example, when I used to run Google Ads 6 years ago, if I didn't put, like for example, if I put automated rule, I would have to create another keyword with automated rules, and I'd create the same version, 2 different words. I'd have to be super specific because otherwise Google would just not show up my keyword. And if I didn't have every variation possible, I wouldn't show up. That's just not the way it works anymore. Now it's like Google uses your different keywords as signals, and then it casts this wide net. Depending on your match types, it'll cast different levels of distribution in terms of how loose it gets in terms of matching towards those keywords. But it doesn't need to be as specific anymore. So now your keywords are really just signals that you use to feed into Google's algorithm for them to then go try to find the right user. So with that being said, we're going to use exact match For the bid strategy, I will be focusing on maximize clicks to start. I'll explain this in a second. And then tracking template doesn't really matter for this video. So basically why I'm using maximize clicks is because to begin, if I'm starting with a brand new account, I have no conversion history. I don't really have a trained Google Ads pixel where I can use a bidding strategy like maximize conversions or target CPA. So in the beginning, if I'm starting with a brand new account, I'm going to start with maximize clicks and I'm going to see what my average cost per click is. And then from there, I'm going to get my first 15 to 30 conversions and then switch over to max conversions or target CPA bidding. But if you're starting with a brand new account, I recommend you start like this first, because if you're too quick to jump into conversion-based bidding and you don't have history in your account, Google might artificially lower or inflate your CPCs too much or too drastically in order to get it. You just will overspend. So long story short, I'm going to use this. And if I do have a lot of conversion history in my account, then I might just start with something like max conversions, see what my average CPA is, and then apply a target CPA limit on it, and then start to push the CPA down over time to try to drive more conversions at a lower cost. So let's go ahead and build this out. Let's come here into the Google Ads account. I'm going to assume you guys are smart enough to understand how to go to Google Ads and sign up for an account. So I'm going to pretend that that's already done. What we're going to do is we're going to click create new campaign. And here in the new campaign builder, we have to choose our settings. So the first thing Google is going to say is going to say, hey, choose your goal. And then basically what this is doing is Google is going to adjust the parameters that you see in the campaign creation based on the goal that you choose. And the reason they're doing this is they're trying to make it easier for you. However, they will modify your available options, which can be restrictive. So what I would suggest is you just click create campaign with auto goals guidance, and then you have all the options available. And then you can choose everything you want in terms of how you want to build this out. This doesn't mean if you do this, you're not going to drive sales or you're not going to drive leads. It just means you're going to have all the options to your disposal. From here, you can choose your campaign type. Google has a tremendous amount of different types of campaigns you can launch, more than any other platform. And I would just focus on search because that's what we're talking about in this video. But if you guys want more videos on Performance Max, Demand Gen, all these other ones, let me know in the comments below. Happy to create follow-ups. But we're going to choose search. And here it's going to say to use your conversion goals. If you don't have conversion tracking set up in your account, definitely make sure you do that before launching your campaigns, because without it, you're going to be flying blind. So that's a really important thing to do. I believe I have content on that in the channel already on how to set up conversion tracking. And if I don't, I know there's tons of videos on YouTube, but just make sure it gets done. Then we're going to click continue. And we have to give our campaign a name. So in my case, I already have it mapped out here. And the general naming convention that I suggest and recommend is you go region, theme, network, language, match type, device. So for example, in my case, it's NA is North America. We're bidding on a non-brand campaign on search in English. The match type we're focusing on is exact, and we're going after all devices. You can use whatever naming convention you want, but the real checklist item here is that it makes sense and that other people can understand what it is if they look at it inside your account. Especially important if you're focusing on working with other people, and everyone needs to work in harmony. We're going to go ahead and click continue here. And then here what it's going to do, it's going to ask us, what is our bidding strategy that we want to focus on? So again, remember I told you I'm going to focus on max clicks here. So I'm going to just switch this over to clicks. If I wanted to set a max cost per click bid limit, I could. So for example, maybe my estimate on the Google Ads Keyword Planner was $35. If I wanted to be really strict, I would just say don't go more than $35, and Google can't go more than 35 on average. However, if I just want to be flexible right now and see what the average really is, which is what I want to do, I'm not going to set a bid limit to start. And then from here, I'm just going to go ahead and skip this because I don't really have conversion data yet. So I'm not going to really get into value-based bidding or anything like that. So let's just go ahead and skip this. But if you do have conversion history, you could leverage this bidding strategy. But generally speaking, we don't see a lot of success with maximize conversion value as of right now. We used to. And right now we're seeing max conversions and target CPA do better. So personally wouldn't use it. And then I'm going to go ahead and click next. And here's the first trap that people fall into is they group all the networks into the same campaign. So you can see here, we've got Google Search Partner Networks, Google Display Network. All of it is checked by default. Unfortunately, Google wants you to spend more money. They'll never tell you this, but like their business model is they make more money, more revenue when you get more clicks on your ads. So they are incentivized for you to get more clicks on your ads. Now, does that become revenue for your business and profit, that doesn't really matter. They're still going to make revenue. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the search campaign is only showing up on the search network. So people searching on Google. So what you're going to do is you're going to uncheck the Google Display Network. This is a completely separate beast. It deserves its own types of ads, its own strategy, its own everything. So do not mix these two things together. It's going to dramatically inflate the amount of impressions on your campaigns, and you're going to have a much lower CTR overall. And because you have a lower CTR, that means your expected click-through rate is going to go down, which means your quality score is going to go down, which means you're going to pay more per click in the process. It's just not worth it. So just uncheck that. The next thing is Google Search Partners. This one, it really depends on you. It's not bad to check, and it actually can work really well for some accounts. Basically, what this means is Google is affiliated and they have a partner network with a lot of other smaller search engines that are not as popular as Google. And basically what Google did is they brokered this deal with these smaller search engines where they said, hey, you're going to agree to let my advertisers show up on your search engines because I have the distribution. And this way you can get a cut of that commission. And there is a ton of different search partners in this network. Some examples are like Ask Jeeves or DuckDuckGo. These are smaller search engines, but also still get a decent amount of traffic that by enabling search partners, you can actually show up on them as well. I would recommend if you're just getting started to uncheck search partners, just get Google search to work first. And then once you know Google search is working for you, use this as like a scaling strategy to expand your reach now on the search partners. It's going to give you more reach and usually a lower cost because you can help get more distribution. So I'm going to uncheck that for now. And then next, what we're going to do is we're going to choose our locations. So in my case, I'm focusing on North America, which is the United States and Canada. But here is the trap that you want to avoid. So by default, Google will focus your location options on presence or interest. What this means is presence or interest is basically means like, in my case, I want to go after people that are searching automated rules in North America. But if I search presence or interest, this means I can show up for people searching automated rules in Russia or China or other parts of the world that are interested in my keywords, but not physically located in my target location. I don't want that to be the case. So in my case, I want this to be presence. I want people in or regularly in those locations. Regularly in is really speaking to people who are traveling in and out like commuters. You know, they go like maybe they travel from one county to another for work every single day. That's what that means. So by default, I would recommend that you focus on presence. Where I would say there's an exception is like if you're in the hotel business, the airline business, you know, hospitality, then interest makes a lot of sense because people might not be physically located in your area, but they're researching hotels in your area and you want to show up, right? That's super important that you get in front of these people before they're actually in your city or your place of business. So for most part, use your discretion, but that's kind of how to think about it. Moving on is languages. Generally speaking, you want to have one language per campaign and your ads and your keywords should mirror said languages. So for example, I'm bidding on the keyword English. My keyword should be in English, my ad should be in English, my landing pages should be in English. If I was bidding on the keyword in Spanish, it should be the same thing, but in that language, and so on and so forth. So this is a scaling strategy. So once you're proving your keywords are performing in your primary language and you can service customers in other languages, that's a form of scaling. But first you want to prove it out in your primary language. Next, EU political ads. I mean, just press no, assuming you're not political, which most people probably aren't. So just click no. Audience segments, you can exclude this, like just don't worry about this. But basically all you need to know is if you wanted to add in additional audiences on top of your campaign and just see how they perform, you could set observation where you could just see how those different audiences are performing. If you wanted to do, let's say that search remarketing strategy I talked to you about, then you could switch it to targeting and now they'd have to search your keywords and be a part of this audience in order for you to show up. Generally speaking, with Google Ads, audiences don't work very well because it's restrictive unless you're bidding on keywords that have tremendous volume. But if you're like most of our clients that are operating in the B2B SaaS space, you don't have a lot of flexibility here. So as a starting point, you can just use observation and add them in for context. But now with automated bidding strategies like max conversions and things like this has become less important over time. So I'm going to go ahead and ignore that. Moving on is we have more settings. So by default, you have optimized prefer best performing ads, I recommend you just keep that on. Start and end dates, you can keep on. This one's super important, ad schedule. So if you're dealing with a smaller budget, I would personally recommend setting up an ad schedule. This is going to allow you to stretch and consolidate your budget even further. Personally, I actually like to set up ad schedules using our tool Sammy, because in Sammy, we're integrated with Slack and we can get notified in Slack every time our schedule takes place or our different rules fire properly. But you can also set up a basic ad schedule on Google Ads where you're just doing, for example, Monday through Fridays. You could even get more specific. So if you do need to control your budget and consolidate it more, instead of showing 7 days a week, maybe focus on only going 5 days a week. And in addition to that, instead of going, 24 hours a day, maybe even consider going, 8 hours a day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. as an example. So I'm just going to leave it Monday to Fridays for now. And that's essentially it. We're going to go ahead and click next. This we're going to skip for the sake of this video, but this is basically a tracking template. Doesn't really matter right now. We're going to go ahead and click next. And here is your next big trap, AI Max for search campaigns. So there is a time and place for using these types of things, but when you're just getting started and you have no confidence in Google Ads, don't just let Google run your budget. So just go ahead and click next. I recommend that you do not opt into this and you skip this, because you're basically giving Google full control. And here is where we're going to add in our ad groups and set up our keywords. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and reference my structure that I created here. So for my first ad group, it's called General. So we're going to go ahead and rename this to General. I'm going to add in my keywords. So I've got one keyword here. It's a very simple campaign. And this is really important. This is where we set our match types. You set match types based on how you add your keywords in here. So you can see here, Google is telling you how this works. So if I were to just put the keyword like this, it's broad match, which is the most broad of all the match types. This basically means Google show up for anything you think is similar or remotely relevant to automated rules. So you're going to show up for all kinds of junk. The next one is phrase match. This is a little bit more control. This is where you're saying, Google, show up for more things, but try not to get too crazy in terms of what I'm actually trying to show up for. And then finally, you have exact match, which is where you're saying, Google, only show up for things that mean this, and Google will show up for different things. But I would say over time, and every Google advertiser will tell you this, match types are becoming more and more loose. So eventually, I wouldn't be surprised, like in 3 years, if it's just broad match. So yeah, anyways, I'm going to just use exact match, and that's what I'd be recommending for you as well if you're just getting started. If you can't get conversions with exact match, phrase and broad, it's probably not going to work out. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to come here, and you can see ad group settings for AI Max. We're going to just go ahead and ignore this because we want to turn that off. We don't want to use AI Max right now. And here is where we're going to create our actual ad. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my domain. Really important that you are using optimized landing pages. I'm just using my domain for the sake of demonstration, but landing pages really make a big difference in terms of conversion rates. There's also a quality score aspect, which is how relevant your ads are, but conversion rates are the main thing you should care about in the beginning. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to add in our headlines. We're going to add in our descriptions, add in business names, site links. These are ad extensions. This basically just gives additional information on how your business works, so you can drive people to different pages. Highly recommending using at least 4 site links. Call out extensions. Try to use as many of these different extensions as you can that are relevant for your business. It's going to help take up more space in the search results page, make your ad bigger, and help improve your click-through rate. So basically, all you would have to do now is just write your ads, and then you can go ahead and launch your campaign. I'm going to not create all of my ad groups just because this video is dramatically long already. So one thing I'll just close off with is I'll link in the description box down below, but we have a pretty great article on AdConversion's blog. So if you come to our blog and you filter by Google Ads, we have this article that I wrote about responsive search ads that I think is really helpful. I actually filmed a whole video on this as well, on responsive search ads as well, if you want to check that out. But basically the thing I will mention is you really want to follow this framework. So the first headline should match intent. The second one should differentiate between the other results. And then your third headline just provides a clear call to action. Google is always optimizing with how they show your ad on the search results page. So now what they're actually doing is sometimes they won't even show your second headline or your third headline. They'll just show the first headline and that's it. So that's why it's really important that it matches intent, because I mean, this is what the search results page looks like, right? You search something and then you see things that just completely don't make sense in terms of search intent in relation to the keyword. So the way you avoid that is by following that framework. Headline 1 matches intent. Headline 2 provides differentiation. Headline 3 is then a CTA. So for instance, the way you would guarantee those different headlines show in that order is you could pin it with this little option here. So now I could pin to position 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. One thing I will close on as well on this is Google has this thing called ad strength. I would completely ignore this. Ad strength has no bearing on your actual success of your ads. This is just Google's score trying to push their recommendations on what they believe will work best for your account. And again, like Google's best interest isn't your best interest, so keep that in mind. And one thing is the way your ad, because this always gets mixed up. I've actually had discussions with Google ad reps about this. It's like, ad strength is not part of your ad rank. Those are two completely different things. Your ad rank is what determines if you're on the top of the page or nowhere to be seen. Your ad strength is just Google's recommendations. And like anyone that's running Google ads, drop in the comments below, like you can verify this. Ads with low strengths can have better CPAs versus ads with a high strength. It has no bearing. So the reason I'm saying that is like, don't stress this. Like, just follow those best practices, and then through over time, you can modify depending on your performance. And last but not least is going to be your budget. So this is really just where you're going to want to set your average daily budget, or if you're running a full fixed budget for this campaign, you can do a total budget with the start and end date. And that's pretty much it. You would launch this campaign and now you'd wait for it to spend and you get some data and then you'd start to optimize. Hope this video was valuable. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us grow our reach as a small channel, and subscribe so you can be notified of future videos. When you're ready, check us out at AdConversion.com and join our community of 9,000 plus B2B marketers mastering ads with our free courses. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.